Why? And then he would give me insight into this man's life and what he dealt with and where his heart was and what his struggles in life were. And I was like, oh, all right. And he said, if you bark back at him the way he barks at you, you're just like everybody else in his life. But I want you to show a better example. So that knowledge, that understanding helped me use my words with restraint and be even tempered with him. Right? And he would get drunk and call me up. You gotta talk to me, man. Talk to me about Jesus. I know I'm a jerk. I know, but just talk to me. Talk to me about Jesus. Like, all right, I'll talk to you. And I would. So, wherever he's at now, I pray for him to be a little bit still minister to him. He used to call me up then after that and want to argue. I was watching this preacher this morning on TV, and he was saying this. You've been saying... I'm like, all right, at least you're watching something, man. All kinds. So balance in every area is important. Balance in every area, not just some areas. Okay? We're talking about being slow to become angry, but balance in every area. It tempers you. If you're balanced in just these few areas, but you blow up, you can lose that focus and that influence across the board, right? You can do great in these areas over here and miss it over here, and people will begin to define you by that miss. You understand? That's why we're slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to become angry, and we're dealing with this area of anger. So balance in every area is important. Titus chapter 1.
Since an overseer is entrusted with God's work, he must be blameless, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonest gain.
And there's a whole list here, but you get the idea. The overseer is entrusted with God's work. So you've reached a place where as a leader, you're entrusted with what God wants you to do. Well, there's a number of things here that you need to deal with. And one of the first three, blameless, overbearing, quick-tempered, I kind of take overbearing and quick-tempered as somewhat in the same category. Now, there are two different expressions for sure, but a lot of times you usually don't get one without the other. If you're overbearing, you're usually hot-tempered. And if you're hot-tempered, you're usually overbearing. Because one of the things about being hot-tempered or quick-tempered is a lot of times what we deal with, and I didn't even go into it in a lot of depth here because I want to give you the keys to this, the foundation for this. But a lot of the times when we deal with being quick-tempered or angry and we're not in the spirit and we're not in the right place, is at a frustration. And it's usually out of a place of frustration because we feel, if I can use the word impotent, we feel like we are not being heard. And whenever you're not being heard, that's when a lot of people tend to become angry. You're in a conversation, you're talking, everything like that, but you're not hearing me. And you start getting loud, and that's anger starts to come from that. Well, if you live on that edge where nobody listens to you, and nobody pays attention to you, and nobody cares what you have to say, then you tend to be more confrontational and quick-tempered in your responses, even when people aren't being confrontational with you. You just tend to be loud and just in people's faces because you need to listen to me. And what that really shows is a lack of confidence and a lack of stability. I don't need to yell. You ever seen it on TV or been to a rally of any kind? I tend to note the people that are yelling the loudest. And I tend to look at them and go, you're the one who needs the most help in believing what you say you believe. Because if you really believed it, you don't have to yell like that. You don't. I mean, you can be confident and enunciate and proclaim, but when you have to scream it and you can't let anybody else have any words in, and all you're doing is just screaming and just going off, it generally says that you don't believe what you really say you believe, and you're trying to get other people to rally to your cause so that you can believe it. I don't know if everybody gets that concept. The people generally shouting the loudest need to shout the loudest to drown out the voice of truth that you're trying to get in. And so I find a lot of times when people are unbalanced and in this place, they're quick-tempered because they're not settled. They're not balanced in their life. When you're balanced, I don't care if you... Okay, I may need to, as a leader, rebuke you harshly sometimes, very rarely, but I don't need to get into a verbal argument and have a discussion. I've walked away from so many arguments later on in my life where I just said, okay. And they're looking at me, what do you mean okay? We're good, we're right. You know what? I've had, Tanya's been with me a couple times where people are, well, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in it. Okay. I have nothing for you, man. Got nothing for you. They want to get in the argument. Because if I can win the argument, and in fact, there's been times when I've purposely won arguments that I was wrong, just to prove to people that it could be done. And I said, listen, you're trying to argue with me, and I just used a facetious argument and destroyed your argument, but you still want to argue with me. I said, I'm the one that's wrong. I just used an incorrect argument to defeat your argument, but you still want to argue. I said, I'm not here to argue with you, man. Stop it. You know? So again, balance in every area is important. And as an overseer, we're entrusted with the work of God. Okay? Balance in every area is important, but a quick temper is one of the most visible displays of a lack of balance. Balance in every area is important, but a quick temper is one of the most readily identified. It's one of the most. You can go through the whole list there in Titus chapter 1, right? Blameless. Well, some blames, some things that are blamed, you don't see. Scripture says the sins of some men follow behind, the sins of others go ahead of them, right? So sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes you can be overbearing. Has anybody ever heard this phrase? Passive aggressive. So people can be very overbearing, but not always quick-tempered. Now, I tend to see a lot of them working together, but there are certain people that are well-versed in being passive-aggressive, right? So that's overbearing without being that. Not given to drunkenness. There's some people that are closet drunks and do function very well, and you would never know, right? Use a little Brute cologne to hide the fact that you were using a little bit of vodka earlier. You know what I'm talking about, okay. There's some people that are violent behind closed doors, and other people don't have a clue, okay? But anger, you tend to wear that. That looks, that's the big red tie on the white suit. Not pursuing dishonest gain, sometimes that don't come out until, what about the unjust manager who was fired from his job, right? We've got all those examples. So again, Proverbs 14:17.
A quick-tempered man does foolish things, and a crafty man is hated.
Pretty self-explanatory. A quick-tempered man does foolish things. All right. So the balance is the most obvious. It's the one that's just right there. You just be quick-tempered. Because some of these other areas, how am I going to blow up at you and display blamelessness? Or that I have something to be blamed for, right? How am I going to necessarily blow up and be overbearing? Unless it moves over into the area of quick-tempered, right? I can be quick-tempered whether I'm a drunk or not. Alcohol just magnifies what's already there. If you're mean, you're just going to be a mean drunk.
Right.
They say he's a mean drunk. No, that means he's a mean person. Alcohol just removes his inhibition so he can express himself in the condition that he has chosen to be in. So it's wrong. It is wrong to think that we will not, or that we are not allowed to become angry. So a quick-tempered person does foolish things, and a crafty man's hated. But it's wrong to think that we can't get angry, okay, or that we won't become angry. It's how we express the anger. How are we balanced in it? Are we patient in it? We were having a little bit of a discussion about children the other day, and the different disciplines. And I was talking, and I said, you know what? No discipline seems pleasant at the time. It's Hebrews chapter 12. But later on, it works out a righteousness, right? For those who've been trained by it. And I looked at the person and I said, you realize we automatically think of the child. This discipline doesn't seem pleasant at the time, right? I said, it's not pleasant for the adult either, right? And even sometimes they've used the phrase, well, this is hurting me more. This will hurt me more than it ever hurt you. I used to look at my kids when they were younger, and I go, no, this is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt me. I'm going to use a vacuum wand or something. I'm going to use, I never got a paddle. Martha used to use the wooden spoons, and they didn't last very long. But anyways, I'm like, no, I'm going to make sure you understand. Because pain trains, right? Right? Listen, I used to be in carpentry full time. You learn how to swing the hammer properly after you've hit your thumb a few times. When you hit your thumb, you are much more precise the next time you swing that hammer. Okay? I'm just telling you. So pain trains. So sometimes training a child can be painful, right? Because they don't understand. You can lecture them for a half an hour, but you swat them for 10 seconds. I was talking with Al, my oldest, the other day, and I said, Al, I said, I know there were times you'd rather have the swat and be done and move on than hear Dad lecture for a half an hour. He's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I said, and sometimes I gave you the swat and then I lectured you. He's like, yep. But you know what? Part of the discussion was, he said, you know what, Dad, I didn't realize how much that helped me. At the moment, I didn't get it. At that time. He said, but now all the things that you used to do and the lessons you taught me and things you said to me, they're all coming back to me. They're all coming back. And that wasn't something that I was trying to pull out of him. That was something he was sharing his heart on. And I said, wow. I went, because I know that. I operated out the principle when they were younger that if you train a child in the way that he should go, when he's old, he won't depart from it, right? But now I'm starting to see, not only am I seeing the fruition, I've seen that for a while, okay? But when you hear them saying it back to you now, without you, without asking, without trying to pull that out of them, right? I'm just having a conversation with my son. He's like, you know what, Dad? I didn't understand a lot of things you said when we were younger, but now it just comes back to me and I get it. And I'm like, wow. And that reinforces it to me because I know I'm around a lot of other young parents and I go, look, not only did I trust the Lord to know what I was doing when I was doing it, but now even my kids are saying it back to me, and that solidifies it. They're the second or third witness. And the key to it is not that we don't become angry. There were times when I was angry with my children. There were times that I disciplined them, okay? But I was patient. I was balanced, or I was working towards it. We didn't always do it. There were times when I came to my kids and I said, Dad was wrong. You're learning to be a kid. I'm learning to be a parent. I missed it this time, and I'm sorry. And hugged them and hugged them until they knew that I was wrong. It didn't mean, I reacted improperly. I humbled myself in front of my children and said, Dad was wrong. I'm sorry. And then we moved on. Same way when they got a swat and got disciplined or corrected in some way, then they came and they sat with me, right? Got the love and the discipline. Sometimes that's missing. So that's why the Lord says He's slow to anger and abounding in love. They work together. You can be angry and then be abounding in love. You can bring correction, but then you better love on. There's a balance. We're talking about balance right now because if we're not balanced, then our anger expression is not going to be balanced. We want to be balanced in it. So it's wrong to think that we'll not, or that we're not allowed to become angry. So this is John chapter 2. I absolutely love this one. This is one of my favorite ones about anger, dealing with Jesus. Go ahead, Pastor Ken.
So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple area, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market?"
Now, that took you 10 seconds to read. I want you to picture the temple. I don't have a picture in my... my Bible nowadays doesn't have a picture of the temple. Maybe it does. In the back. I don't know which one. Oh, it does have it. Let's see. We've got the court. That's a pretty big place. If you look at the whole of Jerusalem, and then you look at how big the temple is in there, that's a pretty big portion of the city at that time. Okay? I want you to think about, this is not just Jesus walking in and in 10 seconds that we read it, clearing the place out. Walking in, hey, get these out of here. And he's done. All right, first and foremost, the key here is that Jesus made a whip, which implies time or slowness in the expression, all right, of his anger. He made a whip. He didn't have this in Indiana Jones, right? And he went, all right, I got to make a whip here just a second, give me a minute. Sat down, made a whip, right? I don't know how intricate the whip was. My mom brought back a whip one time from Mexico for me, and it was, 9 foot long, and I could Zorro it and do all that stuff, but Jesus made a whip. So however intricate this whip was, he still took the time to make it. Now, add to it that he drove all from the temple area. Now, if you look at, like I've got one in my back of my Bible, if you look at the size of the temple, it was a big place. They were set up. Okay? And he drove all of them out. So this isn't, get him out of here type of Jesus expression. This is, I'm going to go table to table, I'm going to kick it over, I'm going to boot you out, I'm going to do... Jesus was on a bit of a rampage. Right? But he was patient, he was balanced, he was in control the entire time. It was still anger. He still was expressing himself. Okay? But the key to this is he was slow. He had patience and he was balanced. That's the key. So, a patient man has great understanding, but a quick-tempered man displays folly. A patient man has great understanding, but a quick-tempered man displays his folly. It's the speed at which we do it. So, you're going to be challenged all this week. Sorry. I apologize. You can come back and tell me your stories. I'm expecting. But you're going to be challenged to be quickly angry this week and have opportunities to be slow to become angry. Okay? That's going to be the big challenge. Sorry. Every time I teach this class, I have people come back and go, I had a couple ones. Some of you even came in and had some leading up to this class tonight. I'm sorry. Lord wants to get us to a place where we're balanced, where we're in a good place. So, it is equally unbalanced not to be angry when the timing is right. Note that one. Balance means there's a time to be angry. There's a lot of time not to be angry. There's all the time to be slow to be angry. But there's definitely a time when it's appropriate and balanced to be angry. Okay? If you're standing in a group of people, I'm trying to think of a safe example. You're standing in a group of people and somebody won't listen, and if they don't listen to what you're saying, they're going to die. You might get a little angry with them to get them motivated to move out of the way. There's a train coming. Get out of the road! Right? I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with somebody who's being hysterical. I've slapped somebody before. Knock it off. Okay. Not necessarily an example of anger, but you know what I'm saying. So again, Matthew 2 there, or John chapter 2, that deals more in depth with that that example of Jesus going into the temple and kicking it over and saying, "All right, get these out of here." I looked at my audio recording. There's so many funny ones in the audio recordings. They do so well to try to dramatize the recordings, but then they miss it on these ones, on the certain ones. Jesus looked at them in stern anger and said, "Get these out of here." That's not anger, man. Are you trying to soften it so somebody can't handle the fact that Jesus was angry? There's one that was it's in Acts, and it's the way the recording goes. Paul looked at them. I got to read it to you. The way the recording is funny. Having received... this is what... 23. There's one right here. Now that I wanted to look it up, I'm losing the spot. One of the ones in Acts where Paul is called to question for himself, and he calms the people down, and he waits. And is it that one? Yes, the way the recording goes, because I'm sorry, I'm running trailing a little bit. You guys love it. It says in chapter 21, the last verse says, having received the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. And when they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, chapter 22, brothers and fathers, that's how the recording goes. I love it. Because it's supposed to go, he said to them in Aramaic, brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense. No, in the recording it goes, and he said to them in Aramaic, chapter 22. I'm like, he didn't say chapter 22. What are you talking about? It's just funny the way those things work. So there's a lot of them in the Gospels, especially with Jesus, where the expression is totally off. It's like, he looked at them in anger, and he said to them, no. What is that? It's this unrealistic expectation. So, section 3. Benefit versus detriment. We've got to look at the benefit versus the detriment and see the balance and see how we need to be slow to become angry, but we still need to become angry at times. Sometimes that anger will save you to be passionate, right? We like to be to Jesus-fy it and call it, it's that righteous indignation. No, you're just pissed. Just say it. But it's okay. You can still be pissed and be in the right spirit. He said pissed. So anyways, sometimes you just, that's where you're at, right?
Right.
But that's okay. What's the outcome? That's what we're going to talk about right now. I'll finish this one up. Pastor Ken, 29.
An angry man stirs up dissension, and a hot-tempered one commits many sins.
Okay, so are we committing sins? Are we stirring up dissension? I've had times where I'm angry, rebuke somebody, calm the whole situation down. Okay? And I've had times, and like I said, a lot of times in my younger years, where I did something out of anger, and what happened? Caused a whole bunch of division, a whole bunch of dissension, everybody was bitter, everybody had to work through it, right? Okay, so we're talking about the benefit versus the detriment. Obviously, we want to ask the Lord all the time. I'm just constantly bouncing up, Lord, was that a right reaction? Whether that's angry reaction or not, whatever the reaction, I go, Lord, should I have said it that way? Should I have done it that way? Should I have, not second guessing, but double checking, right? I want to make sure that my life's pleasing. So at a certain point, I got to ask, Lord, did that please you? Right? Because I can feel good about it, and him not so much.
Right.
So, commits many sins. It points back to Ephesians chapter 4. And I'll scroll back just to... Alright, why are we going slow? In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Do not give the devil a foothold. Right? So, commits many sin. It points back to it. It's saying, don't do something that's going to open a door. You're going to be angry, but don't sin. Don't open up that. Don't commit many sins through doing it. Right? Some of us need to get angry about some stuff. There's some passion in that. Some of us are passionate. Other ones of us need to calm down. Right? You need to find that balance. Picture yourself on the middle of the teeter-totter. You're not on one side waiting for somebody else to jump on and straighten you out. Okay? You're in the middle, and you need to balance. Right? Some people are sitting over there on the other one. There's a big puddle. You ever been to the teeter-totter? There's a big puddle on the other end? And every time the friend would jump off, and you'd go down and splash up, and now you're all wet in the mud. That's not.
Money mess.
That's when you're quick to be angry, and you're like, why'd you get off the teeter-totter? I want to see you get wet. Not nice. But you know what I'm talking about. So you've got to be on the balance, right? Okay. Proverbs 15.
A hot-tempered man stirs up dissension, but a patient man calms a quarrel.
Again, bringing us back to the patience, being slow to speak, right? So you can step into a quarrel. I have to temper myself sometimes that I've gotten to a pretty good place of being able to calm down a quarrel. Stepping in the midst of something, be a peacemaker and calm down a quarrel, right? I've gotten pretty good at that over a lot of years, okay? First you deal with yourself, right? Because a gentle answer turns away wrath. A lot of times you got to answer yourself first before you can ever start answering anybody else. Everything that you work out with people, you have to work out within yourself first, right? James chapter 4 says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from the desires that battle within you? So when you win the internal battles, then you can start to extend that victory stance outside of yourself. But I have to be tempered sometimes because I'm in a lot of different places, and I find myself, especially in hockey, I don't know if everybody's watched hockey, but conflicts arise periodically. It's hockey. I mean, it's the only major sport that fighting is
Encouraged.
allowed, exciting. You know, when somebody has a fight, it's The Gordie Howe hat trick is a goal, an assist, and a fight. That's the Gordie Howe hat trick, right? So fighting in that. So what I say, it's a little bit of a quote from a movie, but they're playing hockey. It's not a tickling contest. So there's some times where guys will head into the boards going after the puck, and there'll be a misunderstanding of what was going on. You hit me. Well, I was going for the puck. Well, I don't care. And I'm standing there being the peacemaker that I am. And a lot of times the Lord will say, stay out of it. Let it go. Let him work it out. Whereas if it's a different scenario, it's a different situation where it's not hockey, it's not that volatile thing, and it's people around me, I'll be more apt to step in there. Again, listening to the Lord. But again, you know what I'm saying is that a patient man calms a quarrel. Well, years and years ago, I know I wouldn't have been as apt to calm the quarrel as much add to it, right? I'd have been what they call in hockey the second man in. Or the third man in, right? There's two guys to a fight, all right? That's it. You're the third man in, you're the first man in sitting in the box. So, hot-tempered man stirs up dissension, patient man calms a quarrel. We're talking about the results. If you are quick-tempered, you'll be the source of dissension or the strife, as the King James translates it, which brings the division. But as leaders, we are called to promote unity and to calm the quarrels. Romans chapter 12.
Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
So when we recognize by the Spirit that the Lord is our defender, then we understand that we must include being slow to become angry. When you start to recognize that, Lord, you're going to defend me. You're the one who's got my back. You're the one who's going to take it out. You're going to work it out, Lord. You're the one who's going to make sure that this works out the right way. When I get that, do not take revenge, my friends. The Lord's going to take care of it. When you get that, I'm telling you what, that'll diffuse a lot of anger right there. When you don't feel the need to defend yourself, there's another passage, there's so many passages, but there's another passage where it says, Paul was rebuking the Corinthians, and he said, why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? Instead, you do wrong and you cheat. And you do this to believers. And you take your court cases, I'm paraphrasing now, he says, but you take your court cases before ungodly people. So two Christians are going to court in front of a secular judge and trying to hash this out. And he's like, you totally missed it. So he's saying, instead of, why not rather be wrong, why not rather be cheated? It's the same thing. He's like, when you're dealing with anybody, as much as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Why? Because the Lord's your peace. He's the one taking care of it. So that diffuses a lot of anger. I think a lot of times people are quick to become angry because they're not settled in this one principle right here. They don't realize that the Lord's got their back, that He's going to defend them. I've had so many opportunities in my life where the Lord has said, shut your mouth, I'll defend you. And I had so many of those situations work out. I could go just start going through a list of ones where people have came back to me, and it may have taken 5-10 years, okay? But they came back and they're like, man, I'm so sorry. And when we left it, they were angry, and I had to take a step back, whether it was my fault or not, okay? I had to take a step back, let the situation go, not defend myself, not stick up for myself, and just let it go. And the Lord worked it and moved it around. And it's just, when you see that, again, it's not the drive-through. It's planting. It's not quite planting an olive tree. Olive trees can take up to 100 years before they start really producing. But apple trees are 5 to 7. Fruit trees, 5 to 7 years. So it's along that line. you know what? You might not see the fruit for a while, but you still cultivate it. You still let it use the ground. You still let it do what it's doing, and eventually it'll bear fruit. And so, again, we're figuring out, I got to be slow to become angry. I've got to be patient in this. I've got to be balanced in this. And then I've got to learn by determining the outcome. Did it produce a lot of strife? Did it produce a lot of contention? Or did it produce some peace? It may have been a little bit hot and heavy in the moment, right? It may have been a little bit feisty in the moment, but look what happened. I've had some good shouting contests with friends of mine. You know? I've had some good arguments. I've had some bad arguments. But I've had some good arguments. You know? And the ones that were good, I wouldn't trade them for the world. The ones that were bad, I still learn from them, but I don't want to do that again. But you know what I'm saying? I've had some, and sometimes, again, we're learning it's necessary. But it's necessary when we're tempered by the Spirit, tempered by how much we're spending with God and doing with God, and then we become balanced. See, it's a misunderstanding to think that we won't become angry, and it's a misunderstanding to think that we're just going to get angry all the time. No, we're not going to get angry all the time. We're not going to be quick to be angry. But at the same time, you are going to need to get angry. I can say it like that. There are times you need to get angry about some stuff, right? Because that's the only time you get your passion up to a level where you can really get things worked out, right? But it's been processed slow to become angry. When you take your time to slow to become angry, the Lord just reminded me right now, I'll say it this way. Be a volcano. In your anger, be a volcano. Okay? They have sensors all over these big volcanoes. You know why? Because they can know several days ahead of time. They can even know. I'll watch some shows and they'll even say, this volcano is due. There's a volcano. This volcano is overdue for an eruption because they've been measuring it and they know, and things are being built up and things are being, right? Be a volcano like that. You just build up and build up. I'm not saying suppress it and blow up. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying be slow to it, and then when you erupt, wipe some stuff out. You get my understanding? I'm talking about a balanced life, but I'm saying if you're going to blow up, then let it flow, right? Change the landscape up. Don't do these little puff. See? Right? A quick-tempered person usually doesn't carry any weight. Because you're always angry. You're just yelling all the time. Don't do that. Yeah. Proverbs 22, Pastor Ken.
Do not make friends with hot-tempered man, with Ahab, hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared.
So, to finish up here, we're talking about the company that you keep. After you recognize the Lord's your defender, and you don't always have to defend yourself. You're like, yeah, I'm a jerk, thanks. When you know that person calling you a jerk's the jerk, but you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was so mean to you by saying hi. I apologize. But it says, don't make friends with a hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared. Now, I'll say it this way. That is a great general principle and a beginner's intermediate principle, okay? Later on in life, the Lord will say, go be friends with him. And I'm like, but Jesus, this guy's a hot-tempered guy. And he's like, yeah, but you're not going to learn his ways. He's going to learn your ways. So you need to go be friends with him, okay? That's after tempering. That's after learning, right? Okay. So, but it's obviously a great principle across the way. Just because the Lord says go be friends with him doesn't mean I'm going to hang out with him 24/7. Right? Right. Okay. So, don't make friends with a hot-tempered person. Don't associate one who's easily angered, or you may learn his ways. The key that I want to put in there is that it's so important not to be quick or hot-tempered that we should avoid close association with those that are. It's so important not to be quick-tempered, to be hot-tempered, that we need to watch our associations with those specific people. You see how many proverbs I have in here? Mm-hmm. Okay? It's just over and over again. There's the dealing with the difference between wisdom and foolishness. Okay? and hot-tempered, angry people. So I don't know who Solomon had around him, but there's a lot of anger. He's like, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. There's not a whole lot about him with the women, so I mean, maybe you should have focused a little bit more on that. But definitely got these ones down. We got this. We got some of this worked out. So one of the other aspects of this is you don't want to make friends with them because I put it in here. It's so important not to become quick or hot-tempered that we should avoid close associations. One of the things that's underlying that I want to point out as we're finishing up is that that's the seductive aspect of being hot-tempered, quick-tempered. Okay? Is some people mistakenly see a fruit or a benefit, or they see, well, yeah, they're mean and hot-tempered, but they get a lot done. Right? They're seeing that momentary anger produces some kind of action. Well, I know I'm a jerk. In fact, there's a hockey coach right now in the NHL, and he has had a reputation for being a very hot-tempered, screamy type, in-your-face type of coach. Okay? Well, over the last number of years, he's been fired several times. Okay, as a coach, and he was even out of coaching for I think about a half a year or something like that. Well, now the team that he's with now, he's kind of reset. He's no longer as quick-tempered and angry the way he was. He's been tempered by the fact that he's been fired a few times, and people realize that his style of coaching doesn't endear the players to him the way that other coaches. You can still be stern and demand excellence without being a jerk. And he was well over into being the jerk level and just barking at people and screaming at people. And now he's had to temper it, and he's even talked about it. He's even done a couple of interviews. He's like, yeah, I've had to really control my frustration and anger and learn to have better anger management skills so that I wasn't just alienating my players, but I was actually endearing them to myself. So there's a way to be passionate. There's a way to be angry that's balanced. Okay, and that's one of the things that's in here is that it's so seductive that it can be drawn in. I don't necessarily like to call out names, but many of you know of Bobby Knight, or should know of Bobby Knight. Very famous basketball coach, but he was a screamer and a chair thrower and very confrontational. Well, it worked for a long time, or seemed to. He won championships, everything like that, right? But near the end of his career, he had one too many blow-ups, and it cost him his job near the end, and he ended up choking out a player or something like that, or something happened that he went too far. Okay? And so people tend to see some results in being the jerk, being the hot-tempered man, being that thing, and they'll learn those ways, and they get themselves ensnared by thinking that's the right way. A lot of times this happens with parents, where a father was overbearing and boisterous, and therefore the son becomes overbearing and boisterous with his children. And it usually takes these roller coaster rides, where the father is overbearing, and the son's overbearing, and then the grandson crashes, and it resets the model. Okay? And then it starts to, and it can stay in that family where it'll build back up again, right? But the key to this, we want to learn, is that that's how toxic this can become. And I want to help everybody as leaders, because you're going to encounter people that are struggling with this. This is a huge area that people struggle with. Not being able to control their anger, not having good anger management skills. They're just hot-tempered. And the Lord will put them in your path. So first, we want to learn it. How do I be slow? How can I? I'm still going to get angry, but I'm going to be slow when I get there. I'm going to be a volcano that you're going to see the Geiger counter start to, the trembler's going to start to move, but it's going to be a few more days before I blow my lid. Okay? You're going to need to leave me alone for a little bit in my anger. Right? I'm not going to throw the tablets down right now. I'm not going to do a Moses. I'm supposed to speak to the rock, but I'm striking the rock. Missed it. Right? Moses missed it a few times in his anger, and it cost him. Right? But the Lord still got angry, but he took a step back. He was patient. And we saw that in Jesus as well, where he's like, I'm going to make a whip, and then I'm going to deal with all of you. So there's a way to do it. And what's the result? What's coming out of that? Okay? So again, this is good leadership stuff, because we want to learn it, and then we're going to model it. We're going to pass it on to people because they want to see, man, if I was where you were, I'd have blown up at that person. I'd have shredded them. Well, that's what being patient and learning how to do this is all about. And you've got to learn those things to be the effective leader God's called us to be. We're Spirit-led leaders, right? Pastor Ken, you got that ready? We're going to read Psalm 9 to finish up.
I will praise you, O Lord, with my whole heart. I will tell of all your marvelous works. I will be glad and rejoice in you. I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. When my enemies turn back, they shall fall and perish at your presence. For you have maintained my right and my cause. You sat on the throne judging in righteousness. You have rebuked the nations. You have destroyed the wicked. You have blotted out their name forever and ever. O enemy, destructions are finished forever. And you have destroyed cities. Even their memory has perished. But the Lord shall endure forever. He has prepared his throne for judgment. He shall judge the world in righteousness, and he shall administer judgment for the peoples in uprightness. The Lord also will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. And those who know your name will put their trust in you. For you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Declare his deeds among the people. When he avenges blood, he remembers them. He does not forget the cry of the humble. Have mercy on me, O Lord. Consider my trouble from those who hate me. You who lift me up from the gates of death, that I may tell of all your praise in the gates of the daughter of Zion. I will rejoice in your salvation. The nations have sunk down in the pit which they made, in the net which they hid, their own foot is caught. The Lord is known by the judgment he executes. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. Meditation. Selah. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. Arise, O Lord, do not let man prevail. Let the nations be judged in your sight. Put them in fear, O Lord, that the nations may know themselves to be but men.
What was that verse? There was a few verses up near the end. And it said, the Lord is known.
The Lord is known by the judgment he executes. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands.
Meditate on that this week. When you think about it. The Lord is known by the judgment he executes. We want to be known by the judgment we execute. Right? You want to be able to say, I think it was, and we're finished.